initially started out with 4 bursaries to help students cope with school-related expenses. However, we have received an overwhelming of 56 applications from 24 families applying for the bursary. We have managed, through our appeal for contribution towards this meaningful award, been able to present 7 bursaries instead of 4 today.
And why have we titled the policy Educating for Creativity and Equality? That is because these are the 2 qualities that will ensure the survival and prosperity of any society. Almost a quarter of our children have reported and gone to see psychiatrists, psychologists because of behavioral problems, hallucinations, depression, behavioral inappropriateness. It's a sad situation, what we're putting our children through. Many of them acted out, had delusional suicidal thoughts. And they acted out. They actually take their own lives. The report post that we put up on our website, I'm sure some of you would have seen. Children actually commit suicide because of this pressure of their exams. We must do something about it. We also have this problem whereby because of the intense pressure, parents want to engage private tuition for their children. Private tuition, as you all know, is not cheap. What about families? What about families who cannot afford private tuition? All it means is that we've taken education out from our schools and placed it on the family. How right is this? We've got to do something about it, and this is what we're going to do.
In order that early childhood education provides a balance of social, emotional, and physical development for our young, the SDP's education program will introduce preschool centers run by MOE. These schools will be accessible to all children, especially those who cannot afford the more expensive preschool classes. Early childhood education is an important field which requires trained and accredited professionals. At the minimum, early childhood educators should be trained in the National Institute of Education with degree holders having extensive education and training in the field. The SDP proposes the establishment of the National Center for Maternal and Child Health, staffed with psychologists, social workers, maternal care specialists to help new parents provide their newborns with the necessary environment to facilitate optimal development. The center will also look into helping dysfunctional families and vulnerable children with early intervention. Okay, next we turn attention to the special needs education. In 2003, the government passed the Compulsory Education Act requiring children born after 1st January 1996 to be enrolled in a primary school. The Act, however, does not extend to children with disabilities. Given that it is not compulsory for special needs students to attend schools, these children's education are left entirely to their parents who are often unable to afford to send them to special schools. Also, the fact that many children in this category are held by VWOs indicate the government's unwillingness to provide equitable education for such students. A report by a committee reviewing special education in Singapore supports the ground notion that education of children with special needs should not be viewed as a charity, and that the government should take more direct ownership instead of the social service sector through NCSS. So the SDP proposes the establishment of the Council for Special Education that will be mandated to review and revamp the sector to lead in integrating the various services that provide education for special needs students. The SDP plan will also include amending the Compulsory Education Act that will mandate children with special education needs to enroll in schools and kindergartens. This will ensure that children with special education needs will not be neglected and they will receive the necessary support for their development. Special education in Singapore is still spearheaded by voluntary welfare organizations administered through the National Council of Social Services. These organizations often work under tight budget constraints. Given their status, they have difficulty in attracting qualified teachers that mainstream schools do. The streamlining of special education needs, instead of the current many helping hands approach, will ensure that the adequacy of the training for special needs, The quality of instruction in the classroom, the level of expertise, the identification and assessment of children with disabilities are all upgraded to meet international standards. Many special needs children continue to find themselves marginalized in the education system. In the mainstream school, teachers find it difficult to cope with such students. They highlight the large class is a problem when there are special needs students to take care of. Teachers are already overburdened with classes of 40 students, even without special needs pupils. And students with disabilities need added attention and resources which with their overstretched workload make it difficult for teachers to cope. The SDP will also reduce class size from the current teacher-student ratio of 1 to 40 to 1 to 20. This will allow teachers to concentrate on the development of their students, including children with special education in their midst. This will be discussed
or those of you who have children who are going through our education system know very well how very pressurizing it is, how academic driven this entire system is. Students here are mugging merely for grades, not because they want to learn or to broaden their minds. And how do we cultivate creative minds? We build confidence in our students. Now, if you've heard some of our local kids speak, and you juxtapose this with some kids from the more Western cultures where education is more all-encompassing, you can see that our kids are less confident, they're more nervous, and they have their views are very limited. Now, this also got to develop their creative skills by encouraging students to ask questions rather than say, I'm talking, all right, don't ask questions. And you know, those of us who grew up in primary school, we know that very well. The next challenge. Now, streaming at the age of 12, that's at PSLE, is too early, and this puts too much pressure on the children. Now, those of you who have children who have done the PSLE, or children who are going to do PSLE, know that the PSLE, 12 years old, primary 6, very important year. Because it's through that one sitting that will determine whether your child goes to normal tech, express, or normal academic. That one sitting of what? Over 4 days. Now, a major study conducted by the OECD showed that the early classification of students according to the ability has negative impact on students assigned to lower tracks. The study. So what is the SDP's proposal, the alternative? Now, this may sound a little radical, but we say remove the PSLE. So we recommend that streaming be done at a later stage. Now, high-intensity curriculum forces teachers to complete the material at a fast pace, often resulting in students being unable to understand and digest material. Now, how many of your kids have had to stay back because the teacher couldn't finish the syllabus on time? So what, they have enrichment classes after school, they have remedial classes after school, and they make the kids stay back till 3, 4, 5 o'clock. We recommend that we broaden the curriculum, or the curricula in plural, and reduce the syllabi. Students in Singapore are trained to be textbook smart. So they read, all they do is read from the textbooks, study their textbooks in order to pass exams. Reading for pleasure is not cultivated. Reading, you know, when the present system extinguishes our students' desire to learn and to explore. Our students develop this aversion for books because they associate that with exams. Now, we all know the benefits of reading and how much it can really enrich our lives. We propose that workload in schools or primary school children to be reduced, to make time for voluntary reading. And we also recommend that the NLB, the National Library Board, in collaboration with the MOE, make books available in the school library so that it makes borrowing books easy. Our students are saddled with too much homework. So what is the alternative? What is the SDP's alternative? First of all, lengthen school hours. You must be thinking, what? Don't our kids spend enough time in school? And so, but before you think that, okay, the SDP proposes that we lengthen we have our school hours from 8 till 4. And during this time, students are to complete their assignments in school so that they take nothing home to do. So that after 4, they've completed all the assignments, whatever they're supposed to do, it's related to schoolwork. And after that, they are free. They're free to read, they're free to to go out with their parents, free just to be children. Students from lower income families suffer from poor nutrition, which affects your mental health, psychological, physical, and socio-emotional health. Now, the SDP proposes that lunch be provided by schools, and we will involve nutritionists, dietitians, to make sure that the meals that are offered are not the lap chop chop, but really nutritious meals. Class sizes, current class size is too large for students to get quality attention. Now, 2 years ago, Minister of Education, Heng Swee Keat, he said that the quality of teachers, it is the quality of teachers that matters, not class sizes. He added that Singapore's overall pupil-teacher ratio is not unfavorable. Now, you don't need rocket scientists or researchers to tell you that class size does matter. If Minister Heng is right, and small classes and size does not matter, why is it that our GEP program classes have an average of 20 pupils per teacher in class? And these are gifted students who are supposedly be able to think more independently, and yet their class sizes is 1 to 20, as opposed to ordinary classes 1 to 40. I've had a class. So what's the SDP's alternative? Reduce class size to 20. It is not radical. It is not. Next challenge. The constant change of teachers makes it hard for students to capitalize on their strengths and minimize their weakness. What we mean is that every year, right, a new form teacher comes and you're taught by a new teacher. Now, if every year their teachers rotate, okay, they don't get to know the students too well. It's hard to capitalize on their strengths or minimize their weaknesses. So the SDP has come up with this system called the dedicated teacher system. Now, what do we mean by that? We will assign a teacher to a class, and that same teacher will take the class for 3 years, a set of 3 years, which means that the same teacher will teach from primary 1 to primary 3, right? So this set of kids stay with this teacher for 3 years. Now, this allows students to build bonding with not just each other, but with the teacher. Students with better results will also be able to help their weaker peers. Teachers will have more time to understand their students and help nurture their development. The next challenge, ranking and banding. I remember ranking came about when I was still teaching in school, and that brought about quite a lot of furor. Now, ranking and banding measures only a very narrow definition of intelligence, and that's academic intelligence. That's the only thing it measures. Your math, your science, your lit, your history, basically your academic subjects. Students who are ranked in weaker classes, banded in weaker classes, tend to see themselves as inferior. And it also creates an elitist outlook and attitude, don't you think? I mean, schools now think, oh yeah, I'm from SCGS or MGS, and then, if you're from some, a neighborhood school, you're probably a bit less forthcoming to tell people what school you're from. So what's the SDP's alternative? Do away with school ranking, do away with class ranking. We propose that students be randomly assigned to classes at primary 1. So no more all the good ones, in one class and so on and so forth. And they stay in the same class till primary 6. Parents should be consulted on programs under the Education Partnership. Now, we all know that there's this EduSafe program whereby you can use this EduSafe kitty fund, yes, whereby you can use it for enrichment courses. Now, very often the school doesn't consult parents on these courses, and they just engage them and then use your EduSafe funds. Now, we want parents to be consulted in this case. Activities done under the CIP. Now, you all know that secondary school students have to do this compulsory community involvement program. And often again, parents are not consulted about these programs. So we want CIP objectives to be clearly spelled out to parents and for parents to know exactly what will be achieved in this project. Want CIP program also to be on a voluntary basis instead of students being coerced into doing so.
I think the question is, you flick any document, you go to the website and you search about Singapore universities, they will tell you we are autonomous university. Our question is, are they really autonomous? So we are autonomous. But at the same time, we have information that the real agenda in terms of university enrollment in Singapore is to be capped at 20 to 25% only. All right, this was from a WikiLeaks document, which is now widely available publicly online. And there is a thinking among the elite, the PAP elite. Lee Kuan Yew felt that if we had too many graduates, it may result in them being unemployed, roaming the street and planning revolutions. So we better not have too many graduates there. Yeah? But even as recently as last year, 2013, Minister for National Development, Khaw Boon Hwan, said, can we as a whole country have 100% of graduates? The point is, for him, even if you have a degree, if you don't have a job, what is the use? And the question is, why aren't our graduates, local graduates, having jobs? So you can see we talk about autonomy, the university, but at the same time, universities, they have an agenda to cap the graduates at 20 to 25%. And I just wanted to make that point. That in itself is a challenge. First they're pushed out because they can't get enough places. And again, I want you to think about the claim that universities are autonomous and the cap and the reasons behind the cap. So our students are pushed out, and going out to study is not cheap. And then they go out, they come back with their degrees, and many find difficulties in securing employment in a very, very crowded marketplace. Majority of the international students are on a tuition grant. Many of them can also avail themselves to scholarships which are not open to Singaporeans, some of them. I think it's important to ask, why are we spending that amount of taxpayers' money on foreign students, grants and scholarship? And what can we do? Foreign students getting a disproportionate number of grants, but they also sign a bond requiring them to stay back in Singapore and work because they got the grant. So the problem becomes more complicated because not only the numbers are large, but then they stay back and they compete. I mean, if you went to Malaysia and you went to a public university in Malaysia, it's a Malaysian university. Okay, let's not look at Malaysia. Let's go a bit further. Let's go to Thailand. You will also get a sense that it's a Thai university. But I think if you come to Singapore, the ratio is very, very different because the number of local academics to foreign ones is quite low. And this is, again, public information. Out of 25 faculty in the political science department in NUS, only 7 are Singaporean. In the Lee Kuan Yew School of Government, out of 82 faculty, less than half are Singaporean, 38 locals. At NTU, at the Rajaratnam School of International Studies, out of 21, 29, less than half, 12 only are locals. In the communications department at NTU, the total faculty is 48. Singaporean is 21, and I think this figure is dated. So those of you who are reading the news, probably you'll have to minus 1 more. The ratio is really of concern. So not only we have a problem from the perspective, Singaporean academics have raised this, that foreign academics hire and promote scholars they know from their home country or institution. So there's certainly that feeling, right? And again, this information is in public domain, and It's referenced in the report and the report. Our first recommendation is to democratize university management and give academics a greater role. And here, the issue of autonomy. I flagged you. Another issue within the same recommendation is that we would like the academics, the sitting faculty, to play a more active role in the management of the universities. You will find a trend both in Singapore and abroad where administrators play a central role, and we want to kind of bring the academics back. In many places, the appointment of senior positions such as faculty sections, deans, and so on are elected among their peers. Again, to remind you of the number of students leaving and coming in, 20 and 50,000 per year. Majority of them, availing themselves of the tuition grant scheme. We would like to abolish the tuition grant scheme. We want to introduce interest-free student loans for all Singaporean students. The interest-free loan will be limited only to the fees, and students will have an 8-year period after graduation to pay them 25% for every 2 years. This will also be available for students studying overseas as well at approved universities. And for students...
what we are saying is that we are scrapping, we want to do away with PSLE and then stream students later. We're not saying we're totally doing away with exams, correct? So at the secondary 4, upper secondary school, junior college, continue assessing students based on their academic excellence. What we've recommended as far as the dedicated teacher system is concerned, we have one teacher taking students from primary 1 to primary 3. After primary 3, the students then are handed over to another teacher who takes them from primary 4 to primary 6. This way, you're giving teachers 3 years instead of 1 to get to know the students, to develop this rapport with them, the bonding with them. Not only with the teachers, but with the parents as well, because when you're actually going to communicate with parents, and to build this holistic environment whereby then students can progress, you need to have focused, dedicated attention to the students. So, no matter what the MOE, what initiative that they come up with, right? If you don't change your fundamental approach to education, everything else is just plaster over tape when you've got an infestation right at the bottom that's malignant already. You follow what I'm trying to say? So that if you don't actually change the curriculum, the approach, and get rid of PSLE, which is just driving this obsessive, unhealthy obsession towards putting kids, making sure they get not just A, but A star, so they can get to those top-ranked schools, RGS, whatever. Whatever program you come up with, it's still going to put that burden on our students, right? Correct now? And not only that, you're just teaching content. What we're saying is that rather than teaching the what, the who, and when, let's teach them the how and the why.